Okay, so we're here watching Caleb D fight DooMWake. It's gonna be very interesting if DooMWake is on the player draw. What that Gemstone Caverns look like, even if he's on the draw. That hand wasn't quite good enough. DooMWake is on the play, so classic on the play Gemstone Caverns magnet.
Really unlucky for DooMWake.
Caleb's hand looks great. Turn 1 Cookbook into Steel Seeker into Manufactor seems like a great mana curve. Actually, just ready to start taking infinite turns on turn 4. And Doom's 6-card hand looks a little anemic.
Yeah, sure, why not? Especially since game 1, there is actually not all that much removal for Academy Manufacturer in DooMWake's deck, right? Because with the crucial third point of toughness, neither Dead Gone nor Fire can deal with it, so it's kind of almost invincible.
Yeah, you'll have to Fury, and Fury 2-pointing yourself to kill. Just the Manufactor can feel kind of slow too. Like
Also, just one copy of Fury in DooMWake's deck, so.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Actually, 3 toughness does seem incredibly difficult to kill. And it also seems like Doom will very, very rarely be able to cast 2 red removal spells on the same turn. Like casting Dead and Dead in this 4-color mana base seems also ambitious.
Exactly. There is indeed a price to be paid for splashing for a double colored card, even if it's a 4-mana card. Those Overgrown Tombs and Watery Grave, they don't make Doom's mana base any better.
Yeah, absolutely. That when we saw in his match against you, the Grixis Triumph was super, super load bearing. Like every time you iced it, it just seemed like there wasn't a single castable spell in his hand.
Yeah. Certainly, it was a game that was much. Game 3 of our match against DooMWake felt much safer to play than it usually does, given that for a certain portion of the game, his mana was unable to cast a Violent Outburst.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Doom getting some value out of the main deck, Mystical Dispute targeting the Emery, and is able to come down, slam Shardless Agent on curve, which is going to be super important to putting on enough pressure to kill Caleb before he can assemble his infinite turn combo with Time Sieve.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we're going to see. Oh, second Cookbook is a huge draw for Caleb because now he can go Manufactor, tap Cookbook, make a treasure token, and use that treasure token to cast second Cookbook to just like really flood the board with artifacts. So that Time Sieve is going to be able to take an extra turn pretty cleanly next turn, even if even if even if the Manufactor gets removed.
Well, the issue is that there is a limited amount of cards in Caleb's hand, right? So what are we discarding to the
Oh, that's
second
true.
cookbook? Doesn't seem like we want to discard either of our cards this turn. Maybe the second Manufactor, actually, if you like want to play specifically around Dead Gone, which we know that there is 2 copies of in DooMWake's hand, but of course things get a bit harder from Caleb's side.
Yeah, I agree. I think you probably do just have to keep all the cards in your hand here.
So will Caleb block? Probably not, right? He sees the deck list too, and he is aware of the amount of 2 damage removal on top of Violent Outburst +1/+0 possibility. So many reasons not to block, and seems like preserving 2 life, going to 6 is not gonna be all that relevant either.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it looks like Caleb is coming to the same conclusion that it's correct to not block here. Now Doom has the choice of slam Shardless Agent and or hold up Double Dead Gone slash or Double Dead slash 1 copy of Gone. Or, I guess you could main phase remove the Manufactor. Doom does know that Caleb is playing the full 4 copies of Time Sieve, and if that copy is over there and you don't remove the Manufactor, the game is going to mostly end on the spot.
Yeah, so if Doom doesn't do anything, things don't look too good for him. That's why we see a dead being cast. All right.
Okay. So now next turn, Caleb can go Manufactor, cast Cookbook off the treasure, but I think Caleb will be a card short or a mana short of being able to like meaningfully use this Time Sieve into more resources. So I think he actually draws the next best thing, which is an Asmo
Yeah,
to
seems to me like it.
stabilize. So is the plan here to go Manufactor, discard, Time Sieve, or Cookbook? Probably
Can
Cookbook
this
because you're about to get another one off Asmo.
Yeah, we can also discard the time save, trigger manufacture, play our Asmo, play cookbook, discard other cookbook. That way we get free food. So we still only deal with one Rhino.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
right.
not all that helpful, but it's a little bit of help.
At least only dealing with one Rhino that would leave Caleb alive because you could just double block the other one with the Asmo and the Manufactor. Lose one of your two
Mhm.
creatures, but still be alive if DoomWake doesn't top deck a removal spell.
Yeah. So yeah, even though like the interaction from DoomWake was fairly minimal, it's still just good enough to make things a little bit harder for Caleb. And as you said, like just short a card or a resource on board of like any kind, basically, right? To take those infinite turns. But
Yeah, I think that's maybe why Caleb chose to play Imri over Steel Seeker on turn 2. Just if he was able to find an Oval Chase Daredevil off that mill 4, would have easily had enough resources to always be discarding to these cookbooks.
exactly.
Caleb was also taking his time to map out this turn. Has played the Manufactor. Is not sure if we're going to play discard Time Sieve or the cookbook. Um, I agree that it's pretty close. I think I would probably just discard the cookbook here. The difference between 3 food and 2 food is just not that high, since either way you're just killing one Rhino, and having the time sieve to follow up and try to start taking some turns feels valuable. Although I guess there's you're gonna lose the Manufactor when you double block. I suppose you could maybe chump block the Rhino token with Asmo and then block Manufactor on the Charless if you wanted to really play around nothing.
Hmm. While you are going through the lines that Caleb can take, I was thinking how powerful would the time sieve deck be if you could choose to only run one Oval Chase Daredevil, but always have it in your opening hand, or better yet, always have it start the game in your graveyard as your eighth card.
I think it would be significantly better.
Significantly better,
A
right?
little
Yeah,
bit better than Gigant.
for sure.
Think that Caleb is considering discarding Asmo or Cookbook and then casting Time Sieve off of the 2 treasures, and then sacking Clue, Food, Cookbook.
Hmm.
But
That leaves us with manufacture and time sieve and
and
play.
yeah, manufacture Time Sieve in play, 1 Cookbook in hand. But I think that's just not enough resources to realistically be able to continue from. Since one tapping of the cookbook is going to cost you a card in your hand, which you don't really have at that point, and it's only going to net you 3 artifacts, but you need 5 a turn to start going off with the time sieve. So
All right, the inactivity timer flashed briefly as Caleb was making his decision. He started tapping his cookbook, but still choosing.
still choosing.
And the cookbook discarded it is. And we are playing the time sieve. All right.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where Caleb is planning to go with this, especially because choosing to discard cookbook instead of Asmo is a little bit surprising. Since this means, yeah, you'll have to sack the time sieve, otherwise you don't have anything to enable your engine. Now we've just discard the other card we drew, which happens to be another copy of Asmo. Play this copy of Asmo, but you only have 1 food token in play. I guess you could spend 3
Crack
mana
the
to put
clue, maybe.
yeah, crack the clue. Yeah, or put Gigant in your hand. But if you put Gigant in your hand, you can't also play the cookbook.
That's why cracking the clue is probably preferable.
Yeah. And as much as you might like to get to play this Urza Saga, it does seem like Caleb will have to discard. Oh, well. I thought that Caleb would have to discard that Urza Saga off the cookbook to have enough food to kill a Rhino. Maybe
Seems
there's
like it
something
was
I've
too
miscalculated.
tempting. But there is another way to survive. It is by double blocking and then gaining 3 life with a food.
Oh, of
That
course.
puts Caleb to exactly 1 life while losing DoomWake's choice of Manufactor or Asmo. Oh, I guess you can block like this. That way you
You have to
don't
keep your
get.
manufactor.
Yeah, you keep the manufacturer for sure.
Trying to think what could Caleb top deck to realistically get out of this. I think Oval Chase Daredevil to just get two clean cookbook. It would have to be like Oval Chase Daredevil into Time Sieve off a clue token or something like that.
Yeah, I think that would do it, right? An island is a little bit less enticing, but
Yeah, could maybe still sack the clue and draw Time Sieve, but then I guess wouldn't have enough to really discard after that. Right.
and it turns out that yeah, Caleb was just short of resources the entire game, a little bit too little resources on every turn, and now we get to go to game 2 where DooMwake's removal is gonna be much better with the introduction of Force of Vigors and, as you mentioned, crucially, Collagen's Command. The
Yeah,
perfect answer for the matchup.
I would probably be a little disheartened if I was Caleb to lose game 1 against Rhinos, since I don't think it's getting any better for him post board. He does have a couple tools like the One Ring, Echoing Truth for the Rhinos, and Unmoored Ego. Um, but overall, I think it's going to be more difficult post board. DooMwake seems to be bringing in the 4 disenchants and maybe just like cutting all of the Shieldreds, or considering cutting some combination of Shieldred, Subtlety.
How good is Force of Negation for DooMwake?
I think pretty medium. I do think that the best way you could fight this Sultai deck is to stop them from having a cookbook in play. So Force of Negation on cookbook, I think it actually ends up being a pretty reasonable
Mhm.
line. Beyond that, there's not a ton of good targets. There are the One Rings in Caleb's sideboards, which maybe Doom thinks Caleb is bringing in. Forcing a Time Sieve is okay, but I would be reluctant to play the full 4 copies of Force of Negation post board against Caleb.
Yeah, I can understand that. Seems like DooMwake chooses to get rid of subtleties instead, leaving the Force of Negations in the deck. Probably just wants to use the removal spells and Force of Vigors um, to handle the creatures
Yeah, I
rather than subtletying them.
think that makes sense. Subtlety can be, I think, a little weak against like all of the 1 mana creature decks. Like Caleb does have Academy Manufactor, which Subtlety lines up fine against, but for the most part, Caleb's creatures are like Asmo, Gilded Goose, Imri, which all cost like 1 mana.
The thing I'm worried about is the fact that once again the crucial third point of toughness just means that neither Fire Ice nor Dead Gun deals with neither Manufactor nor Asmo, so
I
that's a
agree.
little bit sketchy. But
And very funny, the Shieldreds I think made their way back into the deck at the very end there. Okay. We
all right,
have Caleb on the play, this time with a very good Time Sieve hand, having double Cookbook, Time Sieve, and Oval Chase Daredevil for infinite discards.
that's probably like very close to a perfect hand you would like to imagine with this deck.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, maybe you would want a blue or black land over Beseiju, but you have at least the Gilded Goose to get you there, and you probably will draw a blue or black source at some point.
Yeah, also it matches so well against the Fury and Doomwake's hand.
Yeah, I agree.
No
Doomwake,
Force of Vigor inside.
yeah, I would think that Doomwake would probably be pretty happy with his hand, having ice into Shardless Agent with maybe Fury, but Caleb's hand does seem like it lines up super well against Dooms at the moment. Interesting that Caleb is going for Time Sieve here on this turn instead of just playing the second cookbook. I feel like when I've played this deck in the past, I just like to get both cookbooks in play so I can build a board up of food tokens so that when Time Sieve comes down, it's immediately taking an extra turn.
Perhaps a play made with well, both mana efficiency in a way, I guess, with the Gilded Goose, although sacrificing the food is certainly a cost, but maybe also Mystical Dispute or
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I agree. Just playing around dispute seems really nice, and Doom did draw a Force of Negation here, and it was actually I think incredibly well timed for Caleb to play the time sieve.
Yeah, exactly. Turned out to be extremely correct.
All right, so DoomWake cooks Caleb's goose with some fire, and then it'll be be very. I think that Caleb, especially with the time sieve just face up and play, will certainly want a Force of Negation the cookbook.
I have to imagine. Here comes Echoing Truth, so I guess Caleb might get his wish.
Yeah, that was his called shot. Oh,
Not forcing
oh
that.
no.
Okay, interesting. Seems like Doomwake is saving this Force of Negation for the next game.
Well, maybe saving it for the for the echoing truth. Well, although that'll probably be cast on his turn. Although, this is not an infinite turn combo that Caleb has assembled. He basically, with these two cookbooks, gets 2/5 of a turn every turn. Every time you discard, you make a food with each cookbook, you can sacrifice, 2/5 of the required game objects to take a turn with time sieve.
Yeah, it's not infinite, but it's not too far away from getting infinite if Caleb uses those 2/5 every turn, 2/5 of a turn every turn to get some draw steps and
Mhm.
find something useful.
Yeah, and a Academy Manufactor off the top would be, just immediately infinite games pieces. We may see Gigantha get put in the hand next turn too if Caleb doesn't draw anything super relevant.
I think Timesieve qualifies as not super relevant.
Yeah, I agree. It's at least a game object, which well, if Caleb is making 2 food next turn, then the following turn you can sacrifice the other 2 food and the time sieve for a turn. So I think it's probably a little bit more relevant than Gigantha, but basically just 2 mana game object. Not worthy of a Force of Negation either. Imri here is definitely something that will get the ball rolling if it lives. I guess our Doom does have the Fire, Ice, and Fury in hand to answer it though.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's not gonna live. But I still like Caleb's position here, right? Doom is gonna untap, play another Shell's Agent, probably like Fury the Emery, I have to imagine. We'll see what the draw step yields. But that's kind of it. And then Caleb untaps, grabs his extra turn once again, and then maybe finally draws towards manufacture.